Prepare for IELTS Grade 10, Reading Unit 7 Cultural Diversity. Passage 1. In the past, both men and women were expected to be married at quite young ages. Marriages were generally arranged by parents and family, with their children having little chance to say no in the matter. In the past, it was not surprising to find that a bride and groom had only just met on the day of their engagement or marriage. In modern Vietnam, this has changed completely as people choose their own marriage partners based on love, and in consideration primarily to their own needs and wants. Moreover, early marriage is quite illegal. The traditional Vietnamese wedding is one of the most important of traditional Vietnamese occasions. Regardless of westernization, many of the age-old customs practiced in a traditional Vietnamese wedding continue to be celebrated by both Vietnamese in Vietnam and overseas, often combining both Western and Eastern elements. Besides the wedding ceremony, there is also an engagement ceremony which takes place usually half a year or so before the wedding. Due to the spiritual nature of the occasion, the date and time of the marriage ceremony are decided in advance by a fortune teller. Traditional Vietnamese wedding consists of an extensive array of ceremonies. The first is the ceremony to ask permission to receive the bride, the second is the procession to receive the bride along with the ancestor ceremony at her house, the third is to bring the bride to the groom's house for another ancestor ceremony, and to welcome her into the family, then the last is a wedding banquet. The number of guests in attendance at these banquets is huge, usually in the hundreds. Several special dishes are served. Guests are expected to bring gifts, often money, which the groom and bride at one point in the banquet will go from table to table collecting. Passage 2. In Korea, in former days the marriage between a man and woman represented the joining of two families, rather than the joining of two individuals. The event was often called Tiri, Great Ritual, and people from all over the village or neighborhood participated. The ceremonies and events surrounding the actual marriage were long and elaborate. Professional matchmakers paired up likely candidates for marriage, with the new couple often meeting for the first time at their wedding. The families considered many factors in the decision, consulting with fortune tellers for predictions about the couple's future life together. During the chosen period, people married in their early teens, with the girl often being several years older than the boy. The groom usually traveled to the house of the bride for the ceremony, then stayed there for 3 days before taking his new bride to his family's home. The actual ceremony involved many small rituals, with many bows and symbolic gestures. The participants were expected to control their emotions and remain somber. Although Koreans have kept several aspects of the traditional ceremony, most modern ceremonies resemble Western marriage ceremonies more than traditional Korean ones. However, many folk villages and museums across the country regularly perform ceremonies to keep the traditions alive.
Listening. Exercise 1. Listen and complete the text. In Germany, it's important to be serious in a work situation. They don't mix work and play, so you shouldn't make jokes as you do in the UK and USA when you first meet people. They work in a very organized way and prefer to do one thing at a time. They don't like interruptions or sudden changes of schedule. Punctuality is very important, so you should arrive on time for appointments. At meetings, it's important to follow the agenda and not interrupt the other speakers. If you give a presentation, you should focus on facts and technical information and the quality of your company's products. You should also prepare well, as they may ask a lot of questions. Colleagues normally use the family names and title, for example, doctor or professor. So you shouldn't use first names unless a person asks you to. Exercise 2. Choose the option A, B, C, or D that best completes each of the following sentences. My aunt is one of those people who can talk to anyone about anything. If she goes to a party where she doesn't know any of the people, she just walks up to the first person that she sees and introduces herself. And yet she doesn't seem to talk about deeply important things like politics or religion. She always starts off on something very obvious like the other person's job. Very soon, she's talking as if she's known the other person for years. I asked her once what her secret was. She said the most important thing in a conversation was listening. People love to talk about themselves, so if you allow them to do so, it's very easy to keep a conversation going. You have to listen very carefully and ask questions. And you have to look interested, too. So don't keep looking at other things in the room while you're talking to someone. Another thing that I have noticed is that she only pays people compliments. She says, "I like your hair. Which hairdresser do you go to?" Or, "You look very well. Have you been on holiday?" Friendly messages like this seem to provide an easy way into a conversation.